All of us have heard someone say, "I will not believe in anything that I cannot see with my own two eyes." Well, the very least that you can say about such a person is that he must have a narrow view of the world around him.
Shadow flying high, he came to me with the sweetest smile, told me he wanted to talk for a while, he said.
Where did I first see hope play a role in my journey through adversity? I remember it was Walden Street 2007, and I had an orange BMX bike and a whole lot of courage. I loved bombing up and down this one particular hill in our neighborhood, and I'd do it till my legs felt like noodles, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I remember this one day very vividly in particular. I was on the very last lap of the day, and my dad came out to me, and he asked me if I was ready to ride my bike without any training wheels. I kind of feared what he said because I knew I had to use the hope that I had found to conquer something very new, still not understanding what that hope was yet, so it was quite frightening. I was diagnosed with a brain condition called hydrocephalus. Fluid had pooled up in my brain, and that fluid was not able to drain properly, causing my head to enlarge way too quick for my age. And this meant a whole lot of complications and a long road ahead of me. My parents were told when I was 5 months old that I may never walk, that I may never talk, even let alone ride a bike. So when I got on that bike that day and bombed down that hill on 2 wheels, it was a big deal and a turning point of where I found my hope play a role through my journey and adversity. As I've gotten older and maybe a little bit wiser, I would say that hope is a little bit messy and complicated, and it may not be as simple as riding a 2-wheel bike. And I knew even through this year alone, things that I had to face, obstacles that got thrown at me, I definitely had to learn to ask for help. But now at 18, one of my biggest lessons, my disability is never going to go away. Of course, there are days where I think, why me? Why is this happening? But at the end of the day, as much as I try and wish it away, I will never wake up and it be gone.
We had the opportunity to meet initially when you were a young child, and it was because when you were born or shortly thereafter, people recognized that there was a problem in how your brain was developing because there was fluid that was building up inside your brain that needed to be drained. And fortunately, a surgeon in Hamilton was able to take care of that for you with a little device, a drainage tube called a shunt, that kept you in good health for several years, in fact maybe 7 years, until the shunt malfunctioned and we needed to make it right again and make it fixed so that you were in fact comfortable and without headache or discomfort, and that your brain was working properly.
I've always been in love with the beach. Never really understood why, but for the past, God knows how long, 3-4 months, I try and start my day at the beach and I just sit there, I take my book, or just like this morning I didn't take anything, just have my music on and just sit and appreciate and realize how small we are, and how vast everything is.
Mike was my husband. We met, I guess it would be in 2012. We were both in the music industry. I ended up crossing his path at Fortune, and our relationship began very beautifully. He was such an angel, and like pure happiness together, and just so much life. It was just an incredible feeling just to meet somebody of that caliber and be able to share just love and amazing life experiences together.
You know that there's going to be a positive outcome tonight, and that person's going to be not in as much pain, and they've met with the doctor and doing really well. So, but there's also days which, on the flip side of that, you go home and you wonder what you're doing, and you feel super burnt out, and don't know if you can do it the next day. But somehow you find that strength within, and I think, you know, a lot of people feel inspired by myself and other teams, but we equally feel inspired by the people that we work with, and that's really what gives us the energy and enthusiasm.
Arizona when I found the lump on the side of my breast, and I, you know, did I know it was cancer? Yeah, it was the first thing I put into Google was, do I have cancer? That night after feeling it, you know, was that fear? Probably, or maybe that was a little bit of just intuition and knowing it's impossible to kind of know what that was. But I think I knew at that moment.
He was a regular, normal, healthy boy. Actually, no, he wasn't. He was above average, young, soon-to-be amazing athlete. Riding his bike before he was 3 down the skate park, and his balance, and he had shoulders and delts and biceps. It was crazy. He was just very, very cool. And everything was going along swimmingly. And then he was at school, and he all of a sudden couldn't communicate with the teachers, and then got really upset, and then went into a seizure, and that's how it presented itself. So by the time I get to the hospital, he's in seizure, and they get him intubated, they get him to ICU, and then they try and figure out what the hell's going on. And as you can imagine, you know, it's a long process, and nothing was visible. They did MRIs, they did everything. They thought that he had some swelling on the brain, and that was about as far as it went. And me and Nicole just sat there, slept there, and days were going by. And then it was in August of 2009, and I was on a trip down to Portland, Oregon. And I get a phone call on the way down, and Ryder had a seizure again, but it was a long one. It had these mini ones, which was expected, but it was like 13 minutes long. So I was like, okay, well, I can turn around. She was like, no, just have your weekend and come back on Monday. And I was like, okay. And I remember driving back from Portland and just going straight to the hospital. And Nicole was home on a break or something. I think Ryder was having another scan. I don't know, something procedure was going on, and he wasn't in the room. And I remember being in the room, sat there, and Dr. David Dix walks in. And he said something that obviously is going to be etched in my brain forever. It's bank, and it's palliative. What? Say again. What do you mean? And then there was the realization that this cancer had come back, and it come back really aggressive, and the treatment didn't work, which means it wouldn't work a second time, and his age and everything, just there was nothing to be done. And then October 8th, a few short days of his 6th birthday, it was 2 a.m. in the morning or something, he passed away.
A lot of our relationship was so based around like being outdoors and being adventurous, and like that's where I grew up that way, but he instilled so much more of that in me, which was so beautiful. And you know, every time we would, you know, go on a hike, it wasn't just a hike. We would put our headphones in and like pretty much race to the end. It was always about working out and just being the best people that we could possibly be independently and together as well. That's what that day was, April 7th, 2015. We were planning a hike at Quarry Rock in North Van, and like I said, put our headphones in, ran to the end, and got to a point where I looked behind me and he wasn't there, and I backtracked and found him collapsed on the ground. And yeah, that was unfortunately what happened to the love of my life, you know, passed away in my arms. At the beginning, it was nearly impossible to feel hope in anything. I mean, you get kind of carried away, and with any relationship that you have, especially just being with somebody so close, just creating your life together and having all of these plans and you know, having this beautiful outlook into what you're kind of working towards in your life, and all of a sudden it's stripped away from you, you know, and like your whole life kind of comes to a halt, and you really kind of take a step back.
I actually read about the downtown east side years ago, so I always had this kind of affinity or this idea that I wanted to be down here in some capacity. I didn't know how or why or when, but I knew I wanted to. And at the time I was living in Whistler, even though that's a very affluent, you know, wealthy community, there's still things that happen. You know, there's still problems, there's still poverty, there's still people that are homeless, there's still problems with mental health and addiction. Those issues don't discriminate based on income, and they're everywhere.
In 2016, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 3, grade 3. At the time, I didn't know anything about cancer. You know, it was scary, and people died, and it was fearful. And for sure, we'd had some people in our community who were walking through cancer, but nobody that I knew very well. So it was all just stories you kind of heard through the grapevine, or it just felt very, very far away from our reality. But there was a strength that was there from the beginning. I remember sitting at the pony with Chad, and the week before we got the diagnosis, saying, if this is cancer, my biggest concern is that I walk this out with dignity and strength. I was determined to do that. Whether I allowed it or it just didn't come across in my mind, and it's still early days, it's only been a year ago, so maybe that's coming. But I never let myself even wonder, you know, why me? Or that wasn't something I was gonna allow to come in. I knew that I was gonna embrace this.
Me and Nicole were in the waiting room, and we just lost it. It was the only time that we lost hope, and it was devastating. We both admitted to each other, you know what, I don't feel hope. It just hit me. No matter what I do, no matter how much money I raise for cancer research, no matter how many people I make happy, no matter how many smiles I put on people's faces, it's never going to bring Ryder back. Never over the past 7 years had that even been a concept. Never. It literally, I'd never thought of it that way. And it was such a fundamental change in my path to realize that that's what I've been doing for 8 years. I've been trying to please people. I cared about their opinions even when I said I didn't. I wanted everybody else to be happy, and what it given me.
So if you view the world as an opportunity, if you view it as creating new things that are interesting and exciting, in other words, that the glass is half full, you actually always do better.
I think we waste so much time. I think we miss out on what this has for us right here. And I think that, you know, I needed to find my place, that I was going to be okay if they told me I was gonna die in a year or if I was gonna live for 20, that information can't change. Can't change the way that I feel right now. It can't. I can't only be okay if I'm gonna be okay. I have to be okay here.
I think what you're doing right now and what we're talking about, it's less about the science in the purest sense. It's more about people and relationships. And when you have the opportunity to care for someone at the time when they're most vulnerable, that is about people. That's not about, you know, can I do integrals and can I remember the Krebs citric acid cycle and so on. And so don't close doors. Don't close doors. And don't be afraid to walk through them either.
The community up here is so like-minded, I think, is what was very, just to be surrounded by people who enjoy doing the same things as I do. And yeah, that was just very helpful for me. It was not like I was always searching for people that I could, you know, be outside with or do something that I wanted to do, because everybody kind of does it. Everybody wants to be outside and doing something active.
Have a life definitely surrounded with a lot of boys. I say it's why I started the collective, so I'd have women in my life, and it's why I bought a dog that's a girl. My boys are mountain lovers. It's what brought us to Whistler. Chad's passion for the mountains and the snowboarding culture, and just knowing that this is where he wanted to raise our kids. He wanted to raise them in a culture that was community-based, where our kids would be outside.
Listening alone can have such a huge impact. And just being that ear or that voice for somebody to talk to can make a world of difference, right? If I can acknowledge them for who they are and meet them where they're at, wherever that journey is and then that's a success.
I think what we need to learn how to do is sit across from the table from somebody who's suffering and put out our hand and say, I'm just here with you now. I'm just holding space for you right now. This doesn't have to look different. This might not be getting better. There is no reason why this is happening to you. We don't need to solve this. I'm just here. I'm just with you.
This relationship that we have, the commitment we have to each other, and the fact that we're not going to do it alone. The hope is more, it's less about what you do, and it's more about doing it together.
I remember picking up on the phone under the fucking duvet, and I'm just trying to talk, and she can't understand what I'm saying. She said, what's going on? I said, I can't get out of bed. Eventually got out, but I can't get out of bed. She said, why not? I said, I'm done. I'm fucking done. She was perfect. She said, what are you going to do today? I said, well, I've got to get up and go down to the shop and open up and shit. She went, okay. Where are you right now? I said, I'm in my bed with the duvet over my head. She's like, okay. Can you sit up? I was like, yeah, I can sit up. So I sat up. She went, you sat up? I was like, yeah. She said, okay. I think you could turn and put your feet on the ground. I said, yeah, I could probably do that. So I turned around and put my feet on the ground. She went, okay. Did you have coffee yet? I was like, no, I've not had coffee yet. She went, do you have coffee? She was like, yeah. I said, okay, well, you can stand up and go into the kitchen. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Went in, put the coffee on. She went, okay. Need to shower, right? I was like, yeah. She went, okay, well, go for a shower. Call me back in 10 minutes. And I was like, I can do that. So I got in the shower. Got out of the shower, got dressed, and called her back. And that just went on. It went, and it was 30 minutes, 45 minutes of simple instructions that just brought me back that you can never give up hope. Even when you think you're done, you're not done. You might be able to get to the not done part by yourself, but usually you might need a little help and direction. And that day was the day where I'd been hopeless. I was not getting out of that fucking bed. And through a simple set of instructions from my mum, it just brought that right back in. And I've never lost it since. That's why I realized that hope is, that's where I get my hope from. I've got to believe there's something bigger than what we can even possibly imagine.
Those who saw the positive aspects of life and had families that supported them in seeing life in a positive way, even when the end was defined, that we knew things weren't going to get better, they were able to live their life and live it in a way that allowed them to bring joy to others and to enjoy joy themselves. And I'll tell you, that makes being a doctor just such a wonderful blessing.
And it's this idea of exactly what we've talked about. It's this idea that you can have it all at one time, and it doesn't diminish or negate any of it. So you can have incredible success at the same time as failure. You can have happiness at the same time as sadness. You can be going through the hardest time and making horrible decisions, and you're still worthy. You're still enough. You're still good. The idea that something would negate something else in your life, that doesn't belong, because it all belongs. And in fact, true wholeness comes from, I would always say it comes from being on the ground. Like, you're truly whole, you're truly alive when you've gone through that suffering, when you've allowed yourself to be completely broken, when you've been on the floor.
Like, through tragedy or shitty times or any sort of negativity, there's always so much beauty to take away from it. And you almost feel grateful for these experiences because you learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much about the people around you and your community and your family and friends.
Despite what I've been through, I'm truly blessed. That kid gave me so much that I didn't even know.
If that expectation was gone, would you be allowed to just be present? Would you allowed to actually look at your today and go, yeah, this is actually enough. This is enough. I am enough. Because this idea that when people put hope on you and you should be hopeful, you're not thinking about just that you are enough today. It's actually telling you you're not enough. So you have to hope for something different. But you are enough. Broken, just after surgery, recovering from a crappy year full of shunt malfunctions, walking into adulthood wondering what that's going to look like, with having walked through what you've walked through, you are enough. Just like that. With all of that brokenness, all of that helps create the wholeness of Journey.
Something that I've learned about adversity is that it will never look the same. Sometimes it may feel scary and it may feel like it sucks, but you are not alone. When you have a community and an environment surrounding you that are willing to stand by you and show up, that's a big deal. To be by the ocean, in the waves, and with the people that I love, that's hope to me.
planned. A week before the documentary is supposed to premiere, I have to have brain surgery today, which kind of sucks, but I guess life goes on and you never really know what it's going to throw at you until it actually happens. So bring on surgery number 25.
Is that how you really feel?
That I really feel.